What's your advice to marketing leaders now who are trying to navigate and build success in this new world where tech and marketing are converging so quickly?
If you really understand which LLM or how to use LLM, probably you need lesser technical understanding. Probably one of the most important observations that I've had is almost all channels, be it email, LinkedIn, social, or maybe chat or WhatsApp and everything, right? Like all of them have started feeling that pressure and all of them are now losing the conversion rates.
Welcome to the Global Marketing Leader. I'm Andrew Garrihy, a former global CMO turned executive coach for marketing leaders. This is the podcast where we get honest about what it takes to lead global marketing teams and to build global brands that grow responsibly whilst lifting the communities within which they operate. Today, I'm joined by Rahul Jain, a founder and CEO of Wyzard AI, an AI orchestration platform that turns live buyer intent signals into revenue. Now, before Wyzard, Rahul led large-scale product and engineering organizations at OLX Autos, where he also served as the CTO for OLX Autos Global, and later went on to serve as a CTPO across OLX Autos and emerging markets, building and scaling global platforms that were used across multiple regions. It was there that I met and was lucky enough to work with Rahul. I have to say he's one of the best CTOs I've ever met. And one of the things I found really amazing about Rahul was his interest in marketing and how technology could improve marketing. And as a CMO, that was incredibly refreshing. Today, he's spending his time helping modern CMOs think more like CTOs, helping them to understand what signals actually matter and how to connect the stack properly so you can turn those signals, that intent, into revenue. But importantly, without drowning the team in tools. And today we're going to spend a little bit of time also exploring about, from a CTO perspective, and now someone who's building a business that's actually helping CMOs grow revenues, where should a modern CMO start to think about implementing AI? And I just find this perspective of a former CTO now leading a business that's helping CMOs really understand tech. Because as CMOs today, unfortunately, we're being required, or fortunately, to think more like CTOs. And how do we implement this new technology, AI? It is an incredible pleasure to have Rahul here. Apart from being a brilliant CTO, he's just a genuinely lovely human being. Rahul, welcome, and a huge thank you for joining us. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today at Wyzard AI, basically helping CMOs hit their revenue targets?
From my journey standpoint, I think I can easily say that I'm fortunate enough to work with multiple multinational companies as well as startups. And that has given me a really great perspective about dealing with the problems which are very large in nature, globalish in nature, where you have to deal with multiple different customers who have very different sort of understanding expectations from your product versus startup, which are also very global. I think one of the companies that I worked with was e-commerce version, which is e-commerce of India, Snapdeal. That was more like an Indian version, but I think overall, I really got to work with people in multiple geographies, very different and diverse sort of expectations from the platform, variety of teams as well, very diverse sort of teams all across the people, all across the globe. During my journey, I think, and you can see that, right? Like you also mentioned that most of my journey, though I started with as an enterprise SaaS company called McAfee, which is antivirus company. From there, I spent a lot of time working with e-commerce players. And during your journey with e-commerce, it's very, very different than a B2B marketing, right? It's a B2C where your platform has to speak, platform has to converse with the customer and all. And we had to work on variety of very hyper-personalized side of technologies, which was like, you have to understand your customers, personas, cohorts. You have to really target them in a perfect way, and the reward is instant, right? Like in e-commerce, if people like your product, then probably in a relatively smaller journey, they can buy the product, and instantly your AI will get a reward. So I came from that background. And when I started seeing the B2B world and more as a buyer, because as a CTO or as a CTPO, I really got a chance to interact with multiple different VP sales, VP marketing people and all, and uh, some founders also who were trying to sell that product to me or to my companies that I was working with. Uh, and and honestly, I found a staggering difference between a B2C and a B2B world. While in B2C, everything is automated, technology is very sophisticated. In B2B, everything is happening in a very point solution way where they may be using specific softwares to engage or interact with me, but mostly they are trying to touch base in a, I'll say, physical world as well. They'll send me invites, they'll track my emails, they will invite me to a conference, and all of that were happening. And I was amazed and surprised at the same time, right? Like, why so much of innovation has happened in B2C versus very less, relatively very less innovation that actually happened in B2B, right? I wish it would have been that simpler as well. Definitely, it is very, very tricky in a B2B world. I thought that, hey, why not, without, like, before I directly jump, why don't I interact with few founders? And I still remember the conversation that you and me we had in Turkey during that buzz journey, right? Like, I told you that, hey, it is very easy to make machine works, but very, very complicated. You have to deal with people, right? Like, the psychology of the person, every consumer is different. At the same time, I realized that this could be a very interesting problem. While it could be complex, but it could be very, very interesting. And that was the, honestly, I'll say that that was the moment where I started thinking more seriously about that. I never told you that was a real moment, but I think that is where the whole inception of this journey actually started. After that, I started meeting a couple of founders, SaaS company founders. I met VP sales, VP marketing people, and all. And there were clear themes, right? Like, people, any company which is more than 10 million ARR, they are at least using 14 to 15 marketing tools right now, right? So their teams are bombarded with variety, hell lot of tools, forced to follow a process, forced to follow and make data entries into that process, pull out a variety of information from different tools, aggregate that, build a strategy, retarget the customer back. Uh, and at the same time, it is very, very admin type of work. So while most of the CMOs will say that, hey, they want to really accelerate the pipeline, unfortunately, what they end up doing is to buy one more tool, which is another point solution. And
That's so true. I've done
yeah, and
that.
and that's very surprising for me, because they'll buy one more tool, their team will hate it, but they'll force that, and they'll force the adoption of the tool, and that will again eat up into the overall bandwidth that their team had, right? Ultimately may give some sort of visibility to the manager or maybe the VPs of the world, but the people who are at the down, like at the ground doing that work, they're really, really hate it. And that's what I realized. Sorry to say that, but I think I realized that they really are in that big trouble, that, hey, my boss is pushing me to use one more tool. Honestly, my targets are not being met. Hey, my attribution is going for toss. I have to debate with my sales team that, hey, the SQLs are really worthy enough, or even I have to prove to my boss that whatever investment that I have done is really worthy enough. It has generated enough leads for us, right? That was one thing. Second thing is definitely LLM. Everything should be solved via LLM. They are like, you will find companies which are claiming to replace humans. And then you will find CMOs and VP sales and sales leaders also to expecting that, hey, most of the work will be done by AI. And third point, which is last, is most of these people have burned their hands, right? Like with the false promises. So they expect a solution that can really help them in generating outcome rather than throwing one more software. I think this is very, very exciting time, in specifically in the marketing world. While technology is improving, but at the same time, I think a real potential flux or gap is here, that with that we can really figure out a way to generate outcomes rather than throwing one more tool or one more platform to the customers.
Wow. So what got you here was three things, is what I just heard, Rahul. The first one was, you had a lot of experience in e-commerce and different products all over the world, and you were gradually starting kind of to understand the difference in the audiences. One of the big things is you saw how underserved B2B was versus B2C. The second thing is you started to understand the challenge that marketing and marketing teams were having in that space about, there was just so much stuff, so many tools, so much complexity, and a lot of CMOs were just buying extra tools, but not getting the outcomes. And then the third is actually what you're starting to see is people don't want any more tools. They don't want any more complexity. They just want help getting the outcomes, turning all that into the outcomes. And that's kind of where you got to today. Excellent. I'm going to come back to that because I think this is a core topic for CMOs. And the reason I wanted to speak to you is because as CMOs, marketing's got incredibly technical. And I coach lots of CMOs all over the world, B2C and B2B, and I see that firsthand. Right? And some of the things you talked about, kind of arguing with the sales team about the SQL quality and the MQL quality, and sales always need more leads, and marketing always argues that they're not converting the leads. It's a nightmare. So how can technology help? And again, I just want to go back to, that conversation in Istanbul. You and I had just met. We're on a bus, and I will never ever forget that what you said to me, which is, I think marketing is really complex. I'm like, what? I think technology is really complex. And your words were brilliant. Your words are like, I can program a machine to do almost anything, but marketing, you've got to influence people. That's hard. And that really, really stuck with me as just imagine what we can do if marketers can learn how to embrace the technology better, not more, but better and simpler. And that was part of the things we did together at OLX. I love the way you just, working with you, it was great because it was so simple. It was a process of simplification, not complication. And I think that's why it meant such a lot to me, why I wanted to talk to you today. Before we get back to that, I want to talk a little bit about leading internationally first, and we'll come back to the tech in a minute. This podcast is dedicated to international marketing leadership. You've seen a lot of marketing leaders internationally from a CTO perspective. What are some of the characteristics of great international marketing leaders that you've seen from the CTO perspective? And kind of what can we learn from that?
They always talk about customers. They always talk about customer-specific problems. They always talk about, they are definitely focused and worried about building pipelines. But at the same time, they are not losing a sight of the churn, adoption, as well as they're also not losing a sight on revenue as well. So, right, as a CMO or as a growth leader or as a VP sales and marketing, I think that's a common attribute that I found everywhere. Another thing is that, as I said, right, like if you go and talk to people in Japan, very high adoption of iPhone. You will find feature phones as well, which is very surprising for me, at least. And the aging and the population aging is also very, very different, right? Like in the Asian side of the world, you will find much more younger people versus in the Japan and that side of the world, you will find more senior people, right? So then from that lens, when you are building the applications, then you have to first understand that, hey, what are the local dynamics? What are the trust? What is the culture over there? What kind of things that people resonate with, right? And that was a second thing that I found while working with there. And maybe I got a chance to work in definitely Turkey. Then I worked with people in Poland. I worked with people in Seattle, Indonesia, India, and some of the Latin countries as well. You can easily now figure out there are certain similarities in different cohorts of people, right? I may find some sort of similarity between Asian side of the world plus maybe some sort of Latin folks, but Japan and the eastern side of the world is very, very different.
Yes.
And then you will find some sort of similarity between, and that's my point of view. I may be slightly wrong, but Germans plus Europe, US, I think you will find some sort of similarities over there as well. So that's my mental model with which I started observing things. And when almost all successful CMOs were actually, definitely was talking in more detail about the personas at every level in geography, industries and all. But the focus was that, hey, how can I make it much more useful for my customers? How this product is going to create value. And that's where I started using a term called value engineering. Something that I found that, hey, if you have to prove or you have to create an article around that, focus on what are the real value drivers for your customers, right? So people who are writing those articles, CMOs who are focusing on that value engineering concept, people who are focusing on real customer needs, people who are focusing on the geographical aspect of it, the cultural aspect of it, were the people I found with the most successful people, at least in the journey that I have seen all across.
Wow, fascinating. So the great CMOs or marketing leaders or VPs of growth, whatever you call them, had a relentless focus on their customer and serving their customer. They didn't get lost in the tech. They didn't get lost just in the numbers. They had a relentless focus on customer. And importantly, I think what you were telling us is they also recognized the differences internationally on the different customers. So they didn't have a one size fits all. They would really dive down to that. And actually, from your perspective, in building tech to serve those customers, it was a real kind of what you call value engineering, really focusing first on that value rather than kind of what the tech could do.
Yeah, and during our conversation, I still remember. I think we specifically talked about the customer behavior for Didi in China, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We also discussed about how things were different for Huawei or Samsung as well, right?
yeah.
So specifically the Didi example, I think I really found very very impressive, because even the tagline was decided for the specific customer market niche, right? Like from that till bottom where you are delivering value, everything was so connected. That really fascinated me at that time as well, that hey, how structural this could be, right? Like when you start thinking from bottom up way, where who are your customers, how are you going to generate value, and how are you make them understand that hey, what you are trying to serve them, everything is connected over there.
Now, let's get back to tech and marketing before we get back to kind of I do want to come back to B2B because I got a lot of B2B kind of people I coach. So I'm super interested in that because I think it's one of the most exciting areas, yet one of the most underrated in marketing. And it's also one of the most complex. So we're going to come back to that. But I want to talk to you a bit more about kind of this convergence of technology and marketing, because it's happening, it's always been there in marketing, but it's happening at a faster rate than we have ever seen. And a lot of people, I go to lots of industry events, I talk at events, I talk to lots of marketers. To be honest, I'm sick to death of hearing about AI and marketing, et cetera, because it's just everywhere. And I think you made the point earlier. I probably reflect that thing of lots of people have been burned by it, right? Great promises, didn't quite live up. What's your advice to CMOs at the moment trying to navigate this? Like, truly, as CMOs or marketing leaders, we need to be much more technically savvy than we've ever been in the past. What's your advice to marketing leaders now who are trying to navigate and build success in this new world where tech and marketing are converging so quickly?
So first of all, I think again, the answer will lie between in the way the companies, maybe the kind of company, is it a startup or a mid market or an enterprise, what kind of complexities they are dealing with on day-to-day basis. But I think I'll try and divide that into 2 through 3 steps.
Mm-hmm.
How to identify it, the way we did that, right? Like we always try and talk to the people who are doing day-to-day work, right? Try and understand where they are spending most of their time. Is it about tools? Is it about admin work? Is it about talking to the customers? If a company is enterprise, then probably there will be a heavy focus on spending time with the customers, right? And if your team is spending more than 50% of their time just dealing with tools and then preparing decks and then preparing all that, right? So you will get your answer, right? Then in
Yeah.
that case,
Sure.
technology is there, and you have to figure out that technology that can help you in consolidating that. Another example could be PLG type of companies, where things are already programmatic in nature. Then what you need is an acceleration of pipeline, which means that probably you need something on qualification side of the world as well. The beautiful part of this current setup is that LLM has. So I used to say that hey, I used to write softwares in a very technical way, and then there was a layer from where CMOs or maybe let's say any other user of the world would used to start that. Now, because of this LLM thing, that abstraction of technology has happened at a very, very beautiful way, right? So now all you need is use these new age technology tools, give them proper instructions, also train them properly. At the same time, also look out for the tools which are also ensuring and giving you data privacy as well, right? So I know that after talking to multiple different CMOs, they are also worried about that, hey, is my tool going to take my data away? Is this specialized learning specifically for enterprise and mid-market companies? That, hey, I am giving them a specialized learning for this tool. Are they going to use that against my with some other competitor and against me as well, right? So I'll try and summarize that. Look out for tools which are giving you a lesser complexity, and actually work on in terms of giving your instructions via English. Second is look out for tools which are secure. At least they should be following all sort of compliances. But the most important across all of them is try and hear your teams, understand their day-to-day work, and start adding those tools into the overall stack that are really giving them more time to spend and have a human touch with their customers,
Love that.
because now technology is capable enough to do all that grunt work for you, right? So just remove that grunt work and focus on the most value delivery thing, which is talking to customers, meeting them, and try and solve their problems.
I love that. I think that's wise advice. So you said a couple of things there. One was focus on tools that free up your team to do the high value work.
High value work.
Get the grunt work out of the way that's wasting time. And I really love that, because as a lot of what's happened in marketing, and actually I think in business, is, our marketers spend so much time on admin and tools and stuff. They don't do any marketing, right? So I think that's really, really powerful. And I actually do some work with another company that does AI workflows across the whole marketing business. It's the same thing. They're like, well, let's start with where you're spending time that's not adding value to customers. I think so. I love that piece of advice. The other thing you said, which is super important, and again, I think it's why we work together so well, is just focus on tools that offer simplicity instead of complexity, right? Because the last thing you want is another tool where you have to, there's a huge learning curve to train people to use it. No one ever does learn it properly. And I think your other point about now with LLMs, we should be having tools where we can just talk to, right? We shouldn't have that learning curve. If we can do that, one, the learning curve is not there, so people will use it. Two, we'll probably get much better outputs. Three, we have more time to focus on the customer. We should get better results. I love that. Really good. Okay, that's great. Really good.
So something of that, Andrew, probably I think I'll say it in a very different way. If you really understand which LLM or how to use LLM, probably you need lesser technical understanding. Now you don't have to design workflows. System can actually do that for you. You don't have to build APIs to integrate with different sort of tools, because even LLMs will do that for you. All you have to understand is what fits best for your specific use case, and leave that complexity on the machines. Definitely, there will be some initial time to train them, but honestly, if you ask me, I think a lot less technical complexities in comparison to what used to happen previously, if you can figure out the right tool which is more secure as well.
Okay, so what you're saying is learn and understand the LLMs as much as you can, because
Yes.
that understanding will take away a lot of the other complexity.
And that will compound also. The more you train, I think the compounding effect is very high. For example, like if you go and give your context to the machine, and again, I'm repeating that again and again, that you have to figure out right tools. Another bigger problem is that Martech as a category is so heavily crowded that it is very tough now to even figure out that, hey, which is the right tool for your specific
Yes,
context,
and
right?
it's so fragmented, right?
So fragmented. Exactly. That's where I think the point solutions actually come into picture. And again, either incumbents or even the new age players, they are trying to get into a similar sort of positioning. So if you just go and spend time on their website, you may look like everything will look like very similar, right? So
Yeah.
yes, the complexity has moved from using the tools only now to even finding out the right tools, because it is very tough now to identify what is right, what is wrong.
So how do you do that? How does a CMO do that?
Yeah, so my suggestion is, again, a tough question. I don't have real.
but you have a unique perspective, right?
Yeah,
If I were to come to you and say, Rahul, I've got this problem, I've got this tech stack, where would you start?
At least for me now, I think the first thing that I try and figure out is that are they giving you a tool which is activities? See, nowadays the biggest difference is the prior, or maybe 5 years back, or maybe 4 years back, systems were built in a workflow or maybe if else then kind of logic. You design like that.
Yeah.
With LLMs coming into picture, LLMs have given you a capability of understanding unstructured data. That's the way we are communicating. LLMs can really understand that and take decisions on top of it. But again, the problem here is that most of these tools are being translated into an activity machine. You will buy a tool and the tool will actually do a lot of activities for you. But as a CMO and now spending like a couple of years now in this domain, I can say that with guarantee that activities never give you outcomes, but the strategy and the orchestration of these activities when a personalized way gives you a real outcome, right? Which is more like a decision making and a strategy. So figure out that tool which is giving you result as a service or outcome as a service rather than giving you a guarantee on activity. Yes, there are tools that can do emails, that can write LinkedIn's, that can do all of that. So that should be one way. Second is maybe look. So now in this setup, I think people are moving away from seat-based pricing to usage-based pricing, and try and avoid lock-ins in initial weeks or initial months, right? So don't just directly jump on a tool and sign up for that. I think nowadays tools and companies are also flexible now. They'll give you a paid POC, but they'll give you a credit-based system where you can just use that for some time. Once you confirm that, once you believe that, hey, yeah, it is good, that's where you can sign up for that. And third, and maybe the last point is, with this new advent of technology now, so initially there were two parts. One, there was a contract lock-in, and second, there was a data lock-in as well in the previous tools. Once you have input all your data over there, now you're stuck with that tool, right? Like the effort of moving the data out from that tool was so high that, right? So instead of that, now most of these tools will actually give you a capability to flexibly control all of your data integrations, pull out the data and pull it back, push it back kind of setup. So check for that. That, hey, are they going to lock you into that, or they will allow you to move out from that tool? So see, ultimately everything boils down to outcome. If a SaaS company or a AI company is able to generate value for you, they will not try you lock in a contract or in a data lock-in kind of setup. They'll keep on pushing more and more value, and there will be no anxiety that the customer will lose them or leave them, right? So try and figure out these traits, and I wish you luck and all the CMOs to figure out right too.
I probably need luck, but I think the key point that I took away from that, Rahul, was in the past, a lot of what we have done is looked for technology to solve activity problems. I need an email solution. I need an ad solution. And what you're saying is now we're in a world where you should be able to buy based on outcomes because there's so much more integration. There are two big watch outs there. One I want to come back to is data security is one. And the other one is making sure your data is not locked in. So you can't get out of these things. So you've got maximum flexibility. Let's talk a bit about data security, because that is a huge concern with all these AI-based solutions, all these LLMs, which require lots of data, lots of training, lots of context. How do you're on the other side. You've built that. You've been in huge corporates where, you've been responsible for incredibly, multiple countries, multiple brands, multiple platforms. So you've been in the middle of this. What's your advice to marketing leaders kind of looking at this? What should they look for in terms of kind of the key things that are credible and they can trust as signals that this should be data safe?
Yeah. So first of all, I think the most important piece and probably a hygiene piece here is that if you are dealing with multiple different countries, then you have to look out for the specific compliances as well, right? That makes it much more complex. While working in a single state, single country, probably it is relatively easier, right? So first clear cut thing here is to figure out the tools that can give you that sort of local compliance. That's pretty easy, right? Like, and that you can do at a very, very high level. Just look out for those compliance certificates and all. I think, and you should be able to figure it out that, hey, is it even right, relevant or not for you? But the way you just mentioned, right? Like, is my data safe? For that, there are two ways. One is slightly like at a very, very high level, you can ask right questions. And the secondary option is that you can do a smaller review, or you can check for the policies that the SaaS companies are providing you. What you need to understand is that is the data that is being used is only used for your training, or it is used for everybody. That is one. Second is you need to understand where that data is residing. Is that data available in your local servers or in cloud, which cloud and which country that cloud exists? And third thing is probably the simple way to check it is that, hey, if probably that should be the first question that a customer or maybe a CMO should ask. Tomorrow, if I would like to part ways with you, then how can I wipe off the data from your stuff, and how much time it is going to take to wipe it off, and what percentage of data you will wipe it off? If you ask these 2-3 questions, then from that setup itself, you will get to understand that what kind of architecture, the way the systems was actually being implemented. Right? Most of the companies that I have dealt with usually struggle in that because there is no proper mechanism to even wipe it off.
Right.
And then there are ways with which people can train that, right? So my suggestion is that look out for these things, ask those right questions early in the thing. Look out for those compliances, local compliances as well. And if you are really dealing with a very strong PII kind of data, then it is better to have a small audit of that system, where again you can use your technology team or maybe sysadmin teams and DevOps teams to review the architecture as well.
Right.
But again, first question is, if I wipe off, if tomorrow I ready to part ways, how will I wipe it off and how soon I can do that? The moment you ask this question, I think 80 to 90% filtration will happen then and there itself.
Wow. That's a brilliant insight. So the question first is the data laws. Make sure you understand the local data laws. Makes sense. Second was understand what happens when I want to wipe off my data, delete all the data. Can you do that? How will you do that? And that actually will filter out a lot straight away. The third is my data training is being used for training my LLM, or is it used for training others? And the fifth one was, where is the data actually being stored? What countries is the data being stored? And then a critical thing CMO should be doing is working with their CTOs or equivalent to maybe do a quick data audit and check. And I'm assuming, the ISO standards are quite reliable as well, right? And that's part of the data audit.
Yeah, so that's what I said, right? Like you can always go for the compliances, but you never know, right? Like I know so many companies that are like dealing with data loss, though they were compliant enough, right? Like so is there any foolproof way? Answer is no, right? Like there is no silver bullet here, but do it based on the kind of or the complex and maybe the critical data that you are handling with. If you are dealing with a less complex and less critical data, then you can quickly take a decision. If you are really dealing with PII, right? So don't overkill is what I'm saying. Do it for a situation which is right for you. And always look out for more information apart from compliance certificates as well. And always ask this question that, hey, what will happen and how soon you can wipe it off? Yeah. If there's a process that, hey, I'm going to take 2 months for you to give a confirmation that clearly shows that there is no ingrained architecture with which the data can be removed, right? So ask those questions and you will get a signal around that.
Okay, so compliance certificates, how you wipe it off, when you wipe it off, how long it'll take. Okay, great. That's gold. That's a good thing. It's a lovely segue to the next thing I want to talk about, which is what's your recommendation for kind of the working relationship between a CTO and a CMO? Having been a CTO, what's your recommendation for marketers? How can they work better with CTOs and get better relationships and better outcomes? Because a CTO, we used to have the same thing. You've got lots of stuff you've got to deal with, right? Lots of issues. Marketing is not always the top of your list because lots of other demands. You've always got more things you need to fix than you have resources, and more time constraints and capital constraints, etc. So what's your advice to CMOs as they try and build stronger relationships and stronger partnerships with their CTOs?
See, the objectives are very similar, right? So usually the friction comes, and at least while working with you, and we both were actually chasing for the same goals, same business objectives, same customer values, right?
Yeah.
So I usually see that may sound theoretical, but honestly speaking, I think that is the most important piece. If all the CXO team is gunning towards same sort of metrics, then I think it is a lot less friction. Definitely, it will always about prioritization, and as a CTO or a CTPO, I think you will be getting requests from multiple different functions. But if the objectives are same, there will be a less friction. That is one. Second is, from a CMO standpoint also, the understanding has to be there. Again, the answer will between B2C and B2B. In B2C world where we were operating, I think there is a lot much tight coupling between a CTO and CMO, right? Because the tools are highly connected, and the tool that you are exposing to your customer is the tool that is used for marketing, selling, or like acquisition to retention to attribution, everything, right? Like that is happening on the same platform. In case of B2B, barring API integrations, if you follow all sort of compliances and all, I think you can still operate in a slightly decoupled way. That's my understanding. Because and now how in PLGs also, I think it could be very complex again, because in PLG also the overall end-to-end process is there. So my suggestion, at least my suggestion, is that try and gun for the same sort of metrics. Figure out that, hey, what are the prioritization that are the prioritization lens that are required now, and I think mostly that should help in most of the scenarios, and try and understand both sides of the world. Because as a CTO, I may, so for example, in my world, it was more important that, hey, are you guys following the compliances? Hey, there's somebody who's already sitting on my neck and then asking me that, hey, are we, like CFO is coming and asking me that, hey, are we compliant enough? Are we not going to lose data? Are we not going to? Are we? And probably one of the most important piece for me was to look out for marketing tools, because they are the one who are dealing with PIIs almost all the time, right? So uh, compliance on one side and revenue on other side, that's a focus. Like if CTO is focusing on growth and revenue, I think we can solve that. And if CMO is not only thinking about pipeline but also being very serious about customer data and all, I think things can be solved in a much more amicable way.
Okay, couple of things. I also, you use a lot, just in case we've got some listeners who don't understand some of the terms. PLG is product-led growth, and the PIIs is about personal information, is the real areas you're talking about. So in terms of that, the way to work better is, one, have shared goals. That's clear. It makes perfect sense. The other is, again, just respect, especially on the data privacy, because for a CTO, that's a big challenge, especially with marketing tools, because we're dealing with so much personal customer information. That's a big thing. So as marketers, whilst we are in a hurry to get new solutions and to get those outcomes, don't do it at that expense, because it's a big issue for the CTO. And also just understand the difference between kind of the B2B and the B2C, because they're quite different challenges. Okay, lovely. Let's talk next about that, because I want to talk, you're now very focused on B2B. And again, I do a lot of work with B2B marketers and B2B companies these days. And it is really interesting, a huge opportunity, hugely complex buying cycles for consumers, right? It's not linear. Great complexity between marketing and sales, etc. What is your, because you're deeply immersed in this now, you're building a product to solve part of the challenge there. What is your take on B2B marketing today? Where is it going? What are the big opportunities, and what are the big watch outs for marketers in this space, especially with there's so much tech in this space. What are you seeing happening? What are the trends? Because you're talking now to lots of companies with these problems as well, who are trying to solve them. What are you seeing, and what can marketing leaders learn from what you're seeing?
Yeah. So probably one of the most important observation that I've had is almost like all the channels in a B2B. Now we are specifically talking about B2B world.
Yeah.
Almost all channels, be it email, LinkedIn, social, or maybe chat or WhatsApp and everything, right? Like all of them have started feeling that pressure and all of them are now losing the conversion rates, or maybe the conversion rates are being dipped. So the reason behind that is that nowadays it is very, very easy to do those activities, and hence your customers are bombarded with emails and LinkedIn's and all of that, right? So there's a clear-cut buyer fatigue that exists in this world, right? So you have to, and now it is much more critical, according to me, is much more critical to identify right customer at right point in time and serve them with right content as well, right?
It's always
Classically,
been our ambition, Rahul. We've just never done it very well.
yeah. So
It's always been what was sold to us as the dream.
I think you gave me a great perspective at that day, right? Like at any point in time, there are 3% people who are
Yeah,
looking out
exactly.
for your kind of solution.
Exactly.
Now the bigger challenge is how to figure them out,
Exactly.
right? So what we are practicing, at least with some of our customers right now, is a framework. Now we try and say that, hey, try and figure out people who are problem aware, plus people who are solution aware, plus people who are brand aware. So there's a beautiful intersection of that, which is problem aware, solution aware, and brand aware, right? And for variety, like most of the industries, you will find
That's
that
nirvana. How do you get in there?
yeah. I'm just trying to get into that again. Not definitely not a simple answer, right? But nowadays this is much more important because see, initially it was, hey, I'll keep on bombarding my customers with email, or maybe LinkedIn and all, and then maybe joint of that, and one day they will respond, which is more like a brute force kind of setup. But now the problem is that your emails are not even landing to your
Okay.
customers' mailboxes, right? Because Google's and Microsoft of the world have raised their spam filter criterias, and now it is like they'll look into 10 different things to even identify that that is it even a genuine email or relevant email for you. They'll take a call on your behalf. Second thing is Apple's it has also launched, or maybe Google phones or Android have also launched another capability. They'll answer your phone. They'll first check the intent, who is making a call.
Yeah,
So now
yeah.
I really have high empathy now with all the marketeers that, hey, now the situation is very, very critical, very, very tough. All the playbooks that used to work for them 3-4 years back, everybody is struggling right now because their playbooks are
So hang
like
on.
have changed.
I'm not aware of that. So you're saying there's software that will actually take the call
Yes.
and screen the call, not just block it.
Yes.
It'll take it,
Screen.
screen it. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm not aware of that.
All the phones that are not there in your phone book, they will screen all of them. So
Wow.
on your behalf, they'll talk to them, and they'll ensure that is it even relevant. So they'll filter out, hey, why do you want to talk to Rahul?
Okay, so all the channels are becoming more ineffective because we're all being bombarded because it's getting easier to bombard customers. So how do we overcome that and make it more effective and get in that golden triangle?
Yeah, so I think that is more important. I know that historically that always exists, but I think things were still happening without figuring out that nirvana. But now it is much more critical. Uh, Nowadays, we usually say that, hey, you have to listen to all the signals that are coming up from your customer and from your right buyer personas as well as maybe ICPs. Second is you also have to immediately start reacting to that. One thing that was very different between B2C and B2B was, in B2C, if you go there, touch base in any of their platform, in any piece, immediately you will get a notification. Immediately you will get a this thing, right? And there are a lot of research that are already available. If you grab the attention of your customer at right point in time, maybe almost immediately, I think there's a higher chances of that for converting. So listen to right signals, try and create a overall platform setup in such a way that you can quickly react or quickly engage with your buyers. And also ensure that you are able to give them right value. It may be easier said than done, I agree, but I think there are enough tools that are available. Now there are two options. One, you can always go for and figure out a platform that can help you in solving things in an end-to-end way, almost end-to-end way, or you can design that as well, where you can connect these tools via workflow orchestration and all, and make it much more programmatic. Something that was again happening in B2C world, that has started happening in B2B now. In B2C, we did all of that cohort based targeting. all the time, right? Like you will do that cohorting, and you'll figure out your right buyer personas, and then you'll touch base with them and you serve them right product.
Yeah, exactly.
Now the time has come, right? Like B2B marketers also have to start entering into that era where they have to really understand their customers, listen to them, and serve them with a very right value proposition.
You talked about, I think one of the key things there is kind of collecting all of these signals, because I think what I see a lot is marketers, we collect, especially in B2B, we collect individual signals and try and run an action on what we think is a critical signal. But what you're
Yes.
saying is, with the new technologies, with LLMs, etc., we can collect a lot more and build deeper
Correct.
profiles of where that consumer, where that business consumer is actually at. Are they problem aware? Are they solution aware? Are they brand aware? And then what are the signals telling you? And then what should we do about it based on where they're at? That's kind of the gist
Yes,
you're saying.
that's a great summary. And as you said, right, like this kind of theory always existed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
this is nothing new. But honestly, technology was always very limiting in a
Right.
B2B context. Now, I think marketers have a great opportunity if they can figure out right tools for their specific context. I think it is now very, very common to see that their revenues are accelerating. If for certain companies, right, like because they're able to not only pick up right tools, do proper automations, and start grabbing their customer attention at right point in time, way far. There is very small percentage of companies that are able to do that. The difference between them is they have already figured out what are the right solutions, what is the right level of automation, and how can they serve right value to their customer, while most of others are actually figuring that out right now. So my suggestion is that do traverse that journey as fast as possible. Look into your database, look into your customer base, look into your value engineering setup, try and figure out right automation, right tools for you, and pick up and really board this bus as fast as possible.
Very good. One last question. So you also, when we talked recently, you were also talking about something I think is really fascinating, because it appeals to me a lot as a marketer. I'm very outcome focused, right? And I have a simple belief about you get what you focus on. So be very careful what you focus on. And you're seeing a real trend. In fact, you're building towards this, which is kind of from these systems of action to systems of outcome. And actually, that's why I'm so interested in what you're doing at Wyzard, because you're much more focused on that. And I love that, because I don't, as a marketer, I love tech, but I don't really want to spend all my time in the tech. I just want to understand how can the tech get me better outcomes and solve some of my problems for my customers, so I can have better relationships and earn more money, right? But talk to me a bit about what you're seeing there as this kind of focus from, and you've talked about it a bit today, but this focus from kind of actions to outcomes, and how technology is, and how you're solving that problem for people. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, very, very important. And again, we are fortunate enough to see that era now, right? Because it is happening. It has already started happening. As I said, uh, in B2B world, it is really not about activities, but it is always about that beautiful orchestration of that activity, which not only decide about the frequencies of that activity, but also about their timing as well, and what is being served during the via those activities, right? So, and AI agents in the specifically in the marketing world now has a capability to actually work like your co-pilots, or maybe work like your assistants, right? So the way we see this, and I'll try and give you a simple example of a normal, or maybe a very simplified view of a marketing funnel. One of the customer that I just talked with, he said that I was just trying to design the pricing model for them,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that hey, in my overall funnel, uh, first layer is warm lead. Okay, I just discussed with him that, "Hey, what do you mean by warm lead?" He said, for me, warm leads are the leads that have engaged with my content couple of times. People who have downloaded my case study, people who have downloaded either some white paper as well. So he designed those activities for me.
Mm-hmm.
These are the activities that I believe if one or maybe multiple of them have already happened, then I'll assume this to be a warm lead.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is hot. Then he gave me an example that if somebody has attended my webinar, somebody has attended a conference with me, or signed up for some of the initiatives, maybe free signups and all, I'll assume that to be a hot lead.
Mm-hmm.
And they should also be responding to one of your agents. Like they should be talking to your agents and actually giving them a positive response. I'll treat them as a this thing. Third point is meeting book. They said that, hey, if from the cohort of the account book that I have given you, from there, if you get me a meeting booked, that's another outcome. And my sales team tell me that, hey, it is sales accepted lead via band qualification, medic qualification, champ, and all of that, then I'll assume this to be a sales accepted lead. So that's a combination of, so there are, you'll find two sort of companies. One, are companies that are saying that, hey, we will give you data enrichment and we will give you mobile number and email. That's second level of the company will say, hey, we will help you in sending emails and messages to them. But both of them are not giving you a guarantee of outcome. What is outcome? Outcome is either hot lead or a cold or a warm lead, hot lead or a meeting booked, or maybe let's say SQL, right? So if you understand that, hey, these are the ways with which you can clearly differentiate those leads, look out for the products that not only charge you for activities, but they really are ready to put their skin in the game and charge you on final
Right.
outcomes, which is more relevant for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's something really worth paying for.
Yeah, that's and I think we have seen that it immediately reduces the friction because now CMOs or VP growth, they also understand that they are not being paid for, or they're not being charged for only activities that are happening which may or may not translate into a result, but ultimately they are being charged for something that is very, very relevant for them. Some stop us at a hot lead level and they take the handover from the system and they just pay us at a handover level. Some actually, like mostly the PLG companies, they or product-led growth companies, they just ensure that, hey, why don't you run the end-to-end flow, where you are the one who will be translating that lead from lead to a warm lead to a hot lead, from hot lead to a sign up, and from sign up to a paid sign up. All of that is happening in the same tool, and we are being paid on different sort of outcomes within that, right? So in this setup, I think marketing teams have lot higher control. Uh, and then for some of the leads, they take the handover at a meeting book. But for a lot of leads, and that's where they spend the time working with that customer, and that may be an enterprise or a big customer who would really need a nuanced implementation kind of setup. So they just got into that and help them in faster closure.
Mm.
I hope that's what you were looking for. It's an overarching principle, right?
So essentially what we're talking about is results-based pricing,
Yes.
but not based on activity. So not activity-based pricing, results-based pricing. But what I also love about what you talked about is kind of taking all of this data and letting the technology determine whether they're warm, hot, etc. Letting the technology determine whether they're ready to hand over versus a more traditional funnel, right? Because the buying behavior is so different. It's not linear anymore, right? It's quite a complicated set of signals. And that's what I love about you. What you do is you not only enrich the data, but you look at everything to really build these profiles in a much more real time to manage those outcomes.
And the design is on that reward, right? Like these AI systems. See, and again, I'm now wearing my CTO hat. I'm making slight. These systems are designed for a delayed reward, and every LLM system is designed for a reward mechanism. Now, you as a CMO has to take a call that you want to reward them for activity, or you want to reward them for the real outcome, which is important for you. So it's a delayed reward problem, and I'm sure that the CTOs and combination CTO CMO will understand that. But that's how the LLMs are being trained nowadays, right?
Okay, that's a powerful insight. That's a really powerful insight. So LLMs today are built and rewarded and operate based on immediate reward. And what your focus is,
A delayed reward.
the future is training them on delayed reward. And then that unlocks this opportunity of what we just,
Yes.
Okay, that's a whole nother discussion about how we do that, but we haven't got time today. Rahul, I want to say a huge thank you. That was a fascinating discussion. I really enjoy it. And I think more than ever, the technology leaders and marketing leaders need to come together, because I think when we do, we can generate, incredibly powerful experiences for our consumers, your value-based engineering. which is no doubt going to be much more profitable. But if we do it right, it should make our work much more valuable, both to us as individuals, but also as our companies. If we can use technology to get people back to real value adding and away from the stuff that this fragmentation of technology stacks created, that's a good piece of marketing. That's a good company to work for, and that's great for customers. So I really want to thank you for your time and for your insights today, and also for making it kind of within reach of marketers. Some of this stuff is pretty technical, but the way you explain it is quite easy to understand. So Rahul, very, very big thank you for your time. I'm sure we will chat again, but I really appreciate your time and your insights.
So pleasure is all mine. I think I'm really thankful to you for inviting me for this podcast. Really loved the way. I think I always enjoyed this kind of conversation, and I'm fortunate enough to have that conversation very often with you. And this time, I think I hope this conversation that we usually do in a one-to-one setup will be helpful for your viewers as well. So thanks a lot for inviting me here. Thanks, Andrew.
It's my absolute pleasure. Take care, Rahul. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Global Marketing Leader with me, Andrew Garrihy. For more conversations like this, follow the show and connect with me on LinkedIn.